Jilski Egner,
Present.
I'm missing
Miss
it.
Smith,
Here.
Miss Ayers,
Present.
Mr. Ubelman, Miss Revoluz, Miss Revoluz, I see
Here,
you.
did you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Miss Young,
Here. Can you hear me? Here.
yes, yes, Miss Revoluz, thank you. Miss Young,
Here.
Mr. Kites,
Here.
Miss McMurr, Miss McMurr, okay. Miss Alderman,
Here.
Mr. Keegan,
Here.
Mr. Livingston,
Here.
Miss Shanahan.
Here.
We have 12, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the acceptance of the minutes of the regular meeting of April 26, 2022. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Motion made by Ms. Shanahan. Are there any corrections, omissions? Mr. Livingston.
Yeah, I have a correction to my correction last time, which was on, it's on page 2, and the correction is they are carrying a 45% increase, should be corrected to 425%. No, it should be 5% each year.
Okay. Any other corrections? Omissions? Deletions? Don't see any from, okay. Seeing none, all in favor of the minutes as corrected? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. There are no, is there anybody wishing to address the council?
If you wish to address the council, please raise your hand electronically now, and please state your name and address for the record. I do not see anyone, Mayor Riley.
Okay, does any council person have any documentation they would wish to read into the minutes? Was that Ms. Johnson?
No, I was shaking my head no, Mayor. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Okay, seeing none, we will close public participation. There are no resignations and appointments for this evening. Mayor's remarks, as you know, by following the media, Norwalk, as well as many other cities and towns across the state and across the tri-state area, is experiencing an uptick in COVID cases. Our last report was that we were 21.2 cases per 100,000 people, which is a significant increase. We've seen that happening over the past several weeks. We don't anticipate that it's going to slow down over the next couple of weeks. So we issue we strongly encourage people to continue practicing good protocols, to wear a mask if you're in public, try to stay outdoors as much as possible, get vaccinated, get boosted if you've been vaccinated. If you can get a home test at home, and they're available at some of the pharmacies around town. And this Friday, as every Friday, we will be putting out the latest documentation or the latest report relative to the latest cases. Next, as you know, May is Mental Health Month. And last week there was a mental health walk that was scheduled for the Green. It was canceled due to the weather. It will be coming up this week. The 21st of May. It's been rescheduled. Just quickly, because I have another announcement after this, but the Memorial Day Parade will be held on Memorial Day this year, and the Rowayton Memorial Day Parade the day before on a Sunday. All council people are invited to attend. The public is encouraged to come on out and watch the parade and help celebrate, help remember the military men and women who lost their lives in the line of duty. We are also having the week before Memorial Day on a Sunday, we have the Shea Mcgrath Memorial. As you know, Shea and Mcgrath are Norwalk's 2 Medal of Honor recipients. Mcgrath died in World War II and Shea in Vietnam. So it's always proper and fitting for us to honor them and remember them. Next, May is also Haitian Heritage Month. We will be issuing a proclamation and also raising the heritage flag, the Haitian flag at Heritage Wall. I don't know, Ms. Revolus, if you want to make a comment relative to that.
Can you hear me? I don't know how my Wi-Fi is dealing right now.
We can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you so much. I just thank Norwalk for recognizing again their connection with the Haitian community. We are doing several asks this year in the month of May for the Haitian community for that we can bring up for our next council meeting. But just expressing again, great thanks to our 3rd largest community here to understand that their vote is just as important. And if you know the struggles that we deal with, if you speak about Ukraine, to forget about things like Title 42 or the discrimination against our immigrants or the constant violence that is perpetuated in Haiti. We definitely ask for our elect to really think of our community, and we appreciate the mayor and his continued showing of support, and Norwalk's continued showing support of only our residents here, but the Haitian American Collaborative, and big hugs and thank yous.
Thank you, Ms. Revolus. Now I will turn it over to the council president.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I read the consent calendar, I'd just like to follow up on what you said about it being National Mental Health Awareness Month. I want to turn over to Ms. Ayers, who I think wants to make a couple comments on this.
Thank you, Councilperson Livingston. Today, the Common Council of Norwalk is recognizing National Mental Health Awareness Month by most of us wearing some sort or some shade of green here at the council meeting. Our dedication to this cause goes past our fashion choice for tonight's meeting, but it is a crucial place that we choose to stand today to bring awareness to this common language. Prior to COVID-19, approximately 50 million people face some type of mental illness. Those numbers have drastically increased. The invisible wall and stereotypes that have haunted many people that have been labeled with and are battling with mental health must disappear. As a community, we must not only leverage our resources, but speak about the illnesses, causes, and triggers of mental health and mental illness, and be proactive in our response. This month, we should be aware of the collective trauma of all of our mental health and dismay and demystify the taboos around mental health and mental health illness, and be proactive of how we move forward in a mindset of awareness and true community collaboration. We are responsible to not only be aware of our own mental health, but that of our neighbors and family members, while encouraging proper care and treatment. During Mental Health Awareness Month, I encourage all of us to learn about the many services provided by the City of Norwalk. On May 26th, the Public Safety and General Government Committee, in collaboration with the Community Service Committee, will be having a joint meeting to learn about city resources. And I encourage everyone to attend that meeting so that you can be informed. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to speak to this issue tonight.
Well, thank you, Ms. Ayers. Appreciate your fine remarks. I just want to thank Ms. McMurr and Ms. Johnson for putting together this joint meeting later this month that Ms. Ayers referred to. It's a very important subject for us all. And with that, I will turn to the consent calendar, which I will be reading tonight. Item 7A1, Public Works Committee authorized the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute a pole attachment agreement with the third taxing district and any other documents necessary for the purposes of governing use of the city's municipal gains rights on third taxing district utility poles. Item 2A, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with A. Biddy Excavators LLC for project TMP 2022-1 sidewalks and curbing, Highland Avenue safe routes to school, Brookside Elementary School, and Bryant McMahon High School for an amount not to exceed $770,750. Accounts noted. Item 2B, authorize the Director of Transportation, Mobility, and Parking to execute orders on contract with A. Biddy Excavators LLC for project TMP 2022-1 sidewalks and curbing, Highland Avenue safe routes to school, Brookside Elementary, and Bryant McMahon High School for an amount not to exceed $77,075. Accounts noted. 7B, Land Use and Building Management Committee. Item 1, technical correction, amend common council action on April 12, 2022. Item 7D6, to correct the account number from 092250105777 CO619 to read as follows. Authorize the purchasing agent to increase the purchase order for Special Testing Laboratories, Inc. for materials testing and field inspection services for the Jefferson Elementary School renovated new project for an additional amount not to exceed $30,000. Accounts noted. Item 2, authorize the Office of Building Management to sign off on a zoning variance application on behalf of the city as the property owner for the proposed building additions at and to be constructed by the Carver Center, who is the owner of the building. Item 3, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an amendment to the financial assistance agreement with Lockwood Matthews Mansion Museum for the implementation of the infrastructure improvements project at the museum. Terms of the amendment shall be as outlined in Alan Lowe's memo dated April 27, 2022. Item 4, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with Energy Resources USA to provide LED lighting retrofit services at City Hall for a total project amount not to exceed $44,765. Item 5, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute any and all documents with the Connecticut Light and Power Company, DBA Eversource Energy, to apply for and to implement energy efficient upgrade financing through Eversource on-bill financing program for the City Hall LED lighting retrofit project. Item 6, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with Energy Resources USA to provide LED lighting retrofit services at the Norwalk Public Works Center for a total project amount not to exceed $29,666.05. Account noted. Item 7, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with Energy Resources USA to provide LED lighting retrofit services at the Norwalk Fire Headquarters for a total amount not to exceed $11,361.11. Account noted. Item 8A, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with Tucker Mechanical Inc. for the South Norwalk Branch Library Building Energy Management System Installation Project for a total not to exceed $53,411. Account noted. Item 8B, authorize the Office of Building Management to issue change orders on the contract for a total not to exceed $8,000. Item D, Economic and Community Development. Item D1, authorize consent to table, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute the First Amendment to the agreement with Fitzgerald and Halliday, Inc., DBA FHI Studio for the City of Norwalk Transportation Master Plan to examine the impacts on traffic and roads due to the proposed changes in school bell time schedules for a cost not to exceed $31,375. Funding for this work is to be provided by the Board of Education. Item 2, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an on-call contract with Fussin and Neal, Inc. for an amount not to exceed $300,000. Accounts noted. Item 3, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an on-call contract with Vanessa Hengen Brewston, Inc. for an amount not to exceed $400,000. Accounts noted. Item 4, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an on-call contract with WSP USA, Inc. for an amount not to exceed $300,000. Account noted. Item 5, authorize the mayor to execute a license agreement with Sono TOD2 LLC over 46,107 square feet portion of 30 Monroe Street for purposes of due diligence investigation concerning said realty and all other agreements and documents necessary and incidental to the purpose for which said license agreement is granted. And that is the consent calendar. If there's no objection, I'll now call for a vote. All in favor of the consent calendar is read, please indicate by raising your hand. I can't see.
Go back to gallery view.
You look over there.
Yeah, okay. How about this? All opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, passage unanimous. I'm sorry. Back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Livingston. Ms. Johnson, item number 7C1.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. 7C1, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute any and all documents or amendments as may be necessary to disperse grant funding to nonprofit organizations allocated to the ARPA Community Recovery Fund, administered by the Community Services Department to respond to and address community needs due to the negative economic impacts of COVID-19 pandemic. Account number noted in the amount of $1,498,668. I'd like to just speak very briefly on this, and then we'll hear a presentation from our Chief of Community Services, Lamont Daniels, and then have, and I believe I see some hands. I defer back the floor back to the mayor to call
Ms.
on our
Young?
colleagues.
Yeah, yes, Mayor. I think I should recuse myself from this.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Ayers?
Mr. Mayor, I'm also recusing myself from this part of the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Revolis? You're
Same
not-
here.
Okay, so let the record show that Ms. Young, Ms. Ayers, and Ms. Revolis have recused themselves from item 7C1.
Mayor, so
Yes?
what is the process? Usually if we recuse ourselves and we're in the council chamber, someone comes and gets us. So is that going to be something Barbara will text us off? Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
and you can simply turn your volume way down if you want and just, walk out of the room or whatever. Get yourself a cup of coffee.
Thank you. That might work.
I'm muting you all.
Okay, Ms. Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have entered the item in and would like to say a few words before I hand my time over to cede my time to Chief Daniels. This Community Recovery Fund is part of our ARPA fund distribution to the community to address, as Ms. Ayers so eloquently said earlier, the real trauma and needs in our community from COVID-19. I just want to express how grateful I am to our nonprofit community as a whole, and also to the work that Chief Daniels has done to ensure this process works in the interests of all of our residents here in the city, and especially our most vulnerable populations, young all the way through our seniors, and the good works, just the incredibly good works that this funding will put into our community through these nonprofits. It really is an amazing, it's going to be an amazing moment for our city to see what difference this will make in people's lives. And so with that, I will pass it over to Chief Daniels. Thank you, Chief Daniels.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Johnson, and good evening, members of the Common Council, President Livingston, and Mayor Harry Rilling. Good evening, everyone. Tonight, I am pleased to present to you the proposed organizations to be funded under the American Rescue Plan Act, Norwalk's Community Recovery Fund. At the onset of this process, the city outlined our goals for this project and the thorough steps we would take to complete it. We noted that the competitive federal funding program would provide local assistance to nonprofit organizations that have been adversely and economically impacted by the pandemic. We also noted that these grant funds are intended to benefit the needs of our residents, in which several areas of focus were identified. Unfortunately, the demand for funding far exceeded the amount we were allocated to distribute. In my presentation before you, I will share a brief broad overview of the process, including our guiding principles as outlined from the Federal Registry. You will also hear the best practices and the methodology from the Council of Nonprofits that we also adopted. I would also like to take this time to thank the city and to thank every individual and organization that participated in this process. I know that each of you took valuable time out of your lives to either be a reviewer by reviewing the applications or take the time and use our new online system to upload your application. Thank you for your patience. But most important, the intent and purpose of this program was to do one thing, and the purpose was our shared vision to better the lives of the residents of Norwalk. So tonight, if your organization was not selected, this by no means that you did not submit a great application. We again want to thank you for applying and hope to find another opportunity in the near future where your organization and services can be considered again. So I want to thank Chair Johnson and to the committee members of Community Services. Thank you, because you'll hear most of the same things, but I have did a revision to kind of, for the purpose of time, didn't want to do an hour and a half presentation as I did before. So I'm going to share my screen. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Great. So just want to outline the process that we took to get to this evening. And I'm not going to read everything verbatim, but I hope it allows both you, Common Council, and the public to see that this was a thoughtful process to get to where we are today. That we began in June 2021, where we compiled information and regulations. The American Rescue Plan Act is emergency funds to help local nonprofits to expand so they can get the resources they need to help our residents who are most in need. If you recall, during October 2021, we presented our priorities, and I too presented on the process that we will undertake to distribute and allocate these important funds. We developed our plan and we presented it to the Community Services Committee December 2021 and outlined our strategy. And then at the beginning of this year, we implemented the program. Outreach, we provided outreach and education to the nonprofit community. We held 2 live webinars on the 25th and 27th, being mindful of the time. We held a morning one and an evening one, and they were well attended. And we launched the application process. I want to thank Henry, our CFO, and Joyce, our IT department, for assisting in this very quick task to make the entire program online. Thank you. And our process is here today. I indicated that we adopted many principles that are well respected in the nonprofit community in order to allocate our recovery funds to local nonprofits. And they are outlined here, and you'll hear me reference these later on in the presentation, that our highest priority to ensure that these funds make a direct impact on the lives of our most vulnerable here in our city. That either services are to be expanded because of COVID, because of the pandemic levels that many organizations have noted that they have been overwhelmed by the need. And our budget-related principles. These are one-time projects that entail no additional cost from this program. But we also looked at projects that produce matched or leveraged funds. This is important because we took the position that as we allocated funding, we wanted to ensure that organizations that receive this funding, their ability to sustain it, their ability to maintain, and their ability to keep whatever we were funding going. And then our additional principles, that project that led to opportunity. So it wasn't just funding programs. We want to make sure our residents benefit as well and had a lasting impact. This is the equity slide that was also adopted from the Council of Nonprofits, and also language in the American Rescue Plan really asks municipalities and jurisdictions that as we look at this one-time opportunity, we wanted to ensure that we were using an equity lens to ensure that our most vulnerable the most vulnerable were being served, and the most vulnerable agencies that can provide those services. And so this just outlines that we looked at all of the funding streams of organizations through an equity lens. We also wanted to make sure to organizations that can get the money and expand quickly. And then of course, the ability to document accountability and transparency. It's important that these are federal funds. The city did not outline the restrictions and or the requirements. So there was a high administrative component that we want to make sure and position our nonprofits so that they will remain in compliance during the duration of this funding allocation. This is a slide that just highlights the application process. There's more slides to this, but just wanted to outline that there were some minimal requirements that all organizations had to be a 501c3 organization. Organizations had to be in existence at least 3 years and above. But it also talks about the applications were reviewed by the city for completeness. And then we identified a review committee that I'll talk about that the review committee that reviewed the applications and then provided a score. As noted back in October last year, we identified these 6 priorities: eviction prevention, homeless intervention, and again, recognizing May as mental health. That was a big priority for us to meet the demand of mental health, both from our children, including up to our seniors. Early care and education, getting NAW walkers back to work, whether that's upskilling, retraining, to making sure that those that lost their jobs, because many have still not bounced back, especially those that are in the hospitality sector. So we wanted to add funding to organizations that do job training well to ensure that our NAW walkers are being served. And then youth prevention. So I'm going to move quickly to the methodology and criteria in which to how we came to tonight. So this, as I indicated, the review recruitment was such as this, that the city selected reviewers for their knowledge, skills, and expertise related to a particular priority area. Reviewers evaluated and scored each application according to the scoring rubric and criteria. Reviewers considered each application on its own merit, and reviewers considered only what was specifically written in the application. Applications were scored on a scale of 0 to 100. Each reviewer team deliberated and submitted a final score. Scores 80 or above were considered for recommendation of approval. And then based on the public allocation, the funding that we received, the city reserved the right to fund in full, partially, or not at all, if the panel agreed to recommend or funding. At this time, I'm going to transfer or shift to some data points specifically so all can see how the funding will be used and the populations and communities that will be served. So the funding ranges. So with these 2 circles, you can see that 12 organizations submitted funding between $14,000 to $50,000. An additional 17 submitted funding between the 50 to 100. 4 organizations submitted 100 to 200, and 1 organization submitted funding or funding requests over $200,000. But again, as I pointed out earlier, the demand was higher than what we were allocated. And so the proposed awards for tonight, 8 organizations fall in the 7,000 to 50,000 range. 11 organizations fall into the 50,000 to 100 range. And 3 organizations fall into the 100,000 to the 700, 500 range. And these are the categories that are being proposed tonight. And you can see it's almost a third, exactly what we wanted to see. Public health, 33.3%, which includes mental health. Negative economic impact, our job programming, and then services to disproportionately impacted communities, people of color, our children. This is a pie chart of how, for the proposed of how we came to fund. So out of the proposed tonight, 41% will be receiving full funding and 26.5% will receive partial funding. And the applications that were not considered equates to 32.4%. I really like this map because it really allows us to see that we really are touching all populations of our city. Again, exactly what we wanted to do. So as you can see, 21%, 22% the funding will be reaching families in Norwalk. 13% 8% will be specifying with our children, and then 26% will be focused on teen and adolescent programming. 13% will be targeted to our adults, and 8.7% will be focused on our seniors, who have most certainly been impacted in many ways. And then 17%, almost 20% of the programming that is being proposed tonight will reach all families and individuals in our city through their programming. Another slide, we want to talk about diversity. We want to keep equity front and center. And you can see almost half of the organizations, their target population will be reaching minority clients. 50% to 75, about 30%. And then the chart speaks for itself. But most certainly well over almost 70%, at least the target population of our most vulnerable clients was over 50% that the funding will be allocated to. And this is another slide just to bring it to home, that more than half of the applications that have been outlined and proposed tonight will focus on these underserved populations. What that means is that the target population will fall under these categories. So we're making sure that the programming that we are proposing tonight will help our families who are impacted of low income or poverty. We also want to make sure our residents who are uninsured or underinsured, make sure they're served. Our LGBTQ community, our homeless population, our immigrant community, undocumented community in English language programs that will be funded. And then lastly, our further breakdown. So there's 23 total applications that are before you this evening. Again, 11 total applications were not moved forward to be funded due to funding. 91%, and this is important, 91% of the 23 applications being proposed have a credible and clear plan of matching. And again, this was really rated high. We wanted to make sure that while we want to make these investments help organizations, we did not want the funding only last for a year and then that organization will be back where they are again. We wanted to make sure that with this funding, how can organizations leverage and match it so that these programs can be sustained and that Norwalkers could be served beyond this one time. So from a percentage perspective, we were only able to meet 67% of the demand that came. But we also made sure that we were available. So over 47% of the applications received support services from our department to help them. Chair Johnson, this concludes the presentation. I want to thank the committee for moving it to this meeting today, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. Ms. Johnson?
Yes, thank you so much, Chief Daniels. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the city for prioritizing this important work for our community. I guess at this point, we would have questions and or comments from our council colleagues.
Do we have any comments or questions? Ms. Smith?
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor. I'd like to just take a moment to thank Mr. Daniels and commend you for the professionalism with which this process was handled. I know it wasn't easy. And a lot of work and detail went into choosing these organizations and these projects. $1.5 million really isn't a lot to work with, is it? If you think about the tremendous need in our community. What I'm so impressed with is reading through the project summaries and looking at the data that you presented tonight is that there really is an attempt to reach everyone in need. You know, and you went through it. It's like from the very young to our teens and adolescents, adults, the elderly. It's, you know, servicing those who are food insecure, who are homeless, who are suffering mental health issues. It serves our Black and Brown community. It serves our LGBT community. You know, it's very comprehensive. And I just want to really commend you and your staff and those who worked so hard to do the due diligence to get to this tonight, to serve all the people who are in need. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Further comments or discussion? Mr. Livingston?
Yeah, it's hard to follow up with what Ms. Smith said. Very thorough, and I agree 100% with what she said. And I just want to personally thank you and commend you for the process that you went through. I'm not on the committee, but I watched and participated in both meetings, and I know how much work went into this and how difficult the process was. And I really think you did a tremendous job of allocating the numbers in the most efficient way, hitting the most people, and I really commend you for it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Further comments or discussion? I don't see anybody wishing to speak. I'll just add before we move on to the vote that, you know, it's very difficult to look at an application and not fund it. But decisions have to be made when you only have so many funds to allocate. The encouraging thing is I found in Mr. Daniels' comments that we're hoping that there will be other opportunities for funding, and we will watch that very carefully over the next couple of years. This money is going to help a lot of people, but we certainly could use more to help a lot more. So again, the process was great. Mr. Daniels, you led the way and you did a fantastic job, and I certainly appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor.
So moving on, I'll take Mr. Burnett. Oh, Mr. Burnett, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. I didn't get to the mute button quick enough when you said any other comments. Yes, I also want to just echo my congratulations and outstanding work that Chief Daniels has done and his team in terms of just the stewardship of these ARPA dollars. The ARPA funding does not happen all the time. Actually, this is the first time it has ever happened. And we've taken on the challenge to ensure that the dollars create a positive impact. And I want to emphasize that term, a positive impact. I think if out of all the slides that were presented tonight, I think the impact slide carries the most weight with me because it shows how it's going to help Norwalk residents in such a positive way. Making an impact is so important. And I think also this process has helped to heighten our awareness that the nonprofit community needs the help of the city, and we're here to help. It may not always be in terms of providing funding, actual dollars, but we should look at how we can help the nonprofit community advance the good work that they're doing to help Norwalk residents. And I'm sure that's on the agenda of the Community Services Department. So thank you again for all your good work.
Thank you, Mr. Burnett. Ms. Najelski-Eichner.
Thank you. Just one very brief comment following up on Mr. Burnett and Ms. Smith and Mr. Livingston. This is a tremendous opportunity, I think, also for the residents of Norwalk to hear what an impressive collection of nonprofits we have operating in our city. And I really urge people to use this as an opportunity to take a look at who we've got and consider, making your own donations, consider supporting these folks. I mean, I think Mr. Daniels' process should really give people comfort about, again, what caliber and quality of nonprofits we have operating here, how much support they're getting, and how much return people are getting from their investment. So just a little plug to all those listening. It's really very admirable to see how much terrific work is happening in the city. And I applaud you, Mr. Daniels, and your team, and also all of the applicants who, the creativity and thoughtfulness of the applications and the projects is really very impressive and inspiring.
Thank you. Any further comment? Just to say that this shows the need in the community, and the nonprofits during the past 2 years, people were not donating as much money as they normally do. So it's incumbent upon all of us to really think of how much can we help other people? How much can we afford, even if it's $10, $5, but we should all think about in terms of helping other people as well by digging deep into our pockets and making a contribution to our favorite charity. So again, thank you. And with that, I will call for a vote. All in favor? And I've got everybody on the screen this time so I can see everybody. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Daniels and Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Common Council. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is Mr. Livingston, Mr. Kites, I'm sorry, 7D6.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 6, authorize city and redevelopment agency staff to commence negotiations of a land disposition and development agreement with Sono TOD 2 LLC concerning the conveyance of a 46,107 square foot portion of 30 Monroe Street from the city developer. The development of a certain site being the city parcel combined with certain parcels that are identified in the Norwalk Tax Assessor's Land Records as MBL 255-6 and 255-7 and 255-22 owned by the developer, and to proceed on the basis of the key terms presented in the Sono TOD2 IDA term sheet. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that and briefly speak to it, if I may, please.
Mr. Kites?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If approved tonight, we're allowing the city to enter, to begin drafting and land disposition agreement between the city and Spinnaker Real Estate, where the city will be agreeing to sell a parcel of land with 60 parking spots for fair market value. Then the developer will build a structured parking garage to support their residential and commercial use project, but also agree to continue providing 60 public parking spots at the same location. And as a result of this project, it's good to point out that the redevelopment agency was able to secure over $6 million in DECD funding that will support the infrastructure, not just for this project, for also the abutting neighborhoods. So that's an important, something important to point out as well. I'm going to pass this on to Mr. Bedoli, the Director of Redevelopment. I know he's spent many years working on this project, but before I do that, I just want to say, I believe this is a smart project, a project that took a lot of years of hard work to get to this point, and that hard work definitely shows from what we're seeing tonight. I'm hoping it has the support of this council and moves on, and hopefully we can get an LDA back to us in 3 or 4 months with everything that we've spoken about and agreed upon. All right, so to that point, Mr. Bedoli, do you mind filling any spots, any gaps of something I may have missed?
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Mr. Kites, and good evening, everyone. For my presentation, I'd like to just direct you to page 47 of your agenda packet. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at the memo that we put forth, it sort of summarizes the general high-level points of the project, a lot of which Mr. Kites has reviewed. But as was said, the real purpose is to spur a public-private partnership at 30 Monroe, and a combination of 30 Monroe Street and 1517 Chestnut Street, whereby a private developer currently owns the properties on Henry and Chestnut, and the city maintains 60 parking spaces on the large surface parking lot directly adjacent to the South Norwalk train station that we would be actually selling to enable this development. In order to do so, as was said, we will need to engage into a license agreement and then initiate the development of a full land disposition agreement in order to ensure the terms of that sale meet the potential development that we are hoping to achieve with this project. What Spinnaker has put forth is a proposal for 202 mixed-use units at 1517 Chestnut, combining their site with the train station site to create a larger development pad. The site would be purchased for fair market value. The appraisal has been attached to the report. The value is $4.6 million. In addition, the 60 parking spaces that would be obtained through the sale will be replaced in a structured garage in the parking garage at the new development site. Given the high cost of parking to construct, we're estimating about $35,000 a space. We've agreed to credit the developer for $1 million, which is actually the difference between the amount of revenue that they would be obtaining from the spaces on the value of that revenue minus the cost of the construction. So it's really just sort of paying for that increased cost to replace that parking at the train station. And one of the key points of this project is that it is the centerpiece for a $6 million community challenge grant that we all received from the state's Department of Community and Economic Development. And this is to provide improved public infrastructure throughout the project area, right-of-way improvements, green infrastructure along Chestnut, Monroe, Henry Street, and Martin Luther King Boulevard. In addition, $1 million of the secured grant will be allocated towards the rehabilitation and investment in existing affordable housing in the project area. In addition, the developer proposes, and part of this project and the grant will be enhancement of a public plaza across from the train station, increased transit access along Station Place. And there are conceptual drawings included as attachment D. Of course, this is up for we'll go through the land use and entitlement process, and we'll be bringing forth a little bit more detailed designs as the design review process ensues. If you look at page 48, I did put together just sort of a brief narrative over some of the economic impacts of the project. Again, a lot of this is still up for negotiation as we'll be going through the full LDA phase, but we wanted to have something to put forward for discussion and planning purposes so you understood sort of the economic benefits to the city.
Excuse me. Yeah. Mr. Bedoli, we don't have page numbers on our documents.
Oh, I apologize. It's on the PDF, page 48 is what I'm referencing.
Yeah, mine ends at 44.
Is it what's on the screen right now?
I could share my screen if you like. Would that be the easiest for everyone?
Yes.
I have it up. All right, give me 1 second here. Can you see it now?
Yes.
All right, sorry about that. So if you reference this table, I think it was included in your packet. If not, it's in the economic and community development agenda, and I could always send it out. But this is sort of an overview of the development program. As I said, the 202 multifamily units, some various details about the actual project. But what I was referencing initially was the economic impact. Currently, the current site, if you start with this current annual tax number, generates about $22,000 to the city. What we're projecting at year 8, the reason why year 8 was selected is because this project would benefit from the enterprise zone, which phases the tax in over those number of years. At full value will be an additional $878,000 per year to the city. This will obviously be affected by whatever the future mill rate is, any sort of revaluation discussions and the like. That's sort of where we stand today as a static number. If we look at that over a 10-year horizon, you're talking about a $5.7 million tax revenue generation opportunity. That with the cost of the land, $4.6 million, you're looking to generate about $10.3 million over that 10-year period, assuming all things equal over those years. And that does assume the enterprise zone benefit phase in. And then, of course, it will unlock the $6 million grant opportunity. So with the sale of this acre of land, we're looking at about a potential benefit of about $16.3 million. One of the things that we were very cognizant of is obviously trying to mitigate as much risk as we can for the project. We had a discussion at the Economic and Community Development Committee in this regard in terms of what risks may exist and how we intend to mitigate them. The key one, I think, is parking, right? Since we're talking about utilizing existing parking that benefits commuters, making sure that that's uninterrupted throughout the project period. So that's what the project phasing plan and temporary parking plan intend to do. And the full details of that will be flushed out in the full LDA. But the way it's currently working is that the actual project phasing would accommodate it so that we could build the parking, the replacement parking before taking the other parking offline. So we'll have to work through all those details with planning and zoning. The number of the other sort of risks in terms of project delivery, we're working to secure the transaction so that actually there's guarantee, because one of the key considerations that's important for this group is that since it's so intricately tied with the grant, we have to make sure that the project actually gets completed, or else there would be a requirement by the state to pay back the funds. What we're working to do is to secure that so that the funds are available in the case should something happen, but also working with the project phasing so that we're not spending the money before we have a surety that the project's actually going forward. So that'll be detailed throughout the full LDA process when we come back to you all to consider the full details of the project. That, in addition to various personal guarantees that we've negotiated with the developer, we feel like we're trying to cover all the bases that we can, and we'll have a larger discussion on the risks and their various mitigation once we pull the full LDA together over the summer. So that's pretty much the high level. I'm happy to address any questions or bring forward any more detail on any item that may be of interest.
Thank you, Mr. Bedoli. Can we have the screen back?
Yes, you can. There you go.
Thank you. Do we have any comments or questions? Or Mr. Kites, do you have anything further?
No, Mr. Mayor, we covered it, pretty much everything.
So do we have any comments? Ms. Najelski-Eichner.
Brian, could you just very briefly speak to some of the public input process you've already engaged in here? Because I know that has happened, and I think that's helpful for people to understand.
Yeah, no problem. And I appreciate the question because that was a big part of this whole project, kind of where we got today. So we really focus on doing an overall comprehensive plan and develop an overall vision for the area with the Sono TOD plan we've been working on for the past year and a half. before we sort of went and engaged and sort of pulled these details together in terms of what that looked like. We wanted to make sure that it actually worked within the context of the community and infrastructure, because we don't want to overburden the area. So we did a lot of traditional public engagement through our TOD planning work. We did generalized public meetings that were citywide, where this was part of the discussion. But we also wanted to be considerate to the local immediate neighborhood, working with District B and creating a community advisory committee, kind of trying to shepherd this whole process through and really listen to people and figure out how we could try to make this a better project for everyone. So I think we had 3 to 4 meetings specifically with the community advisory committee, also going to District B concurrent to all that. If you actually reference the South Norwalk TOD plan, which I'm pleased to report was just adopted by our board tonight, it goes through the sort of the timeline and the dates by which. So yes, there was a robust community engagement program, and I think it made this overall project better in the end.
And again, just so that the public is aware, could you give some examples of changes that you made in response to public comment?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the number one is infrastructure, making sure that there's adequate infrastructure to support this and taking a real hard look at traffic impacts. And of course, the grant is hugely helpful in that regard. So we're going to be, doing an additional public process even through that as we design those improvements and as we sort of model out what the future impacts will be. So there'll still be more to come in that regard. The actual design of the project itself, we had the developer actually come to the District B meeting, hear comments from the community in terms of the scale and sort of design that they were interested in terms of the project. That resulted in changes specifically along Henry Street, where we kind of scaled things further away from the street to create a larger pedestrian environment, and then also do more townhouse style development that I think will interface better with the community. And then there were other things too. I mean, we were actively engaged with some of the existing affordable housing complexes in the area, and that influenced the grant more so in terms of what we applied for. Hearing that, there's a lot of new development, there's a lot of benefit, but how does that, translate into equitable redistribution of resources? And we were very cognizant of that, and listen to it earnestly and want to try to bring back as much as we can with this project. And I think finally, green infrastructure was a big one. We heard a lot about green infrastructure. I think that's going to really inform the design and what we do along the public right of ways as we, work through this project together.
Thanks, Brian. I really want to commend you, based on what I've heard from folks and the conversations we've had, for this real attention to the public concerns and making concrete changes that really reflect public comment. I think that that's really crucial, particularly for such a large scale project. And I'm really appreciative of your work and the work of your team to achieve that.
Thank you.
Before we move on, I don't see Miss Ayers has returned. Did we know if she got notification that we were done with the item for which she recused herself?
She did, I did send her the message.
Okay. All right, Mr. Livingston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we discussed at the committee meeting, I mean, the devil's in the details with the LDA, but I have to say that I have been really impressed with the way you, Mr. Bedoli, and city staff have really tried to address and mitigate the risk here, and in particular, how you looked at and addressed some of the issues that we felt dealt with the and are dealing with when the POCO Wall Street Place LDA. And I really commend you for that, including seeking the personal guarantee and addressing the parking situation to ensure that we are never without parking. So I really appreciate that. And I feel much better that you have looked at this so carefully and have worked so hard to address it. And I look forward to seeing the full LDA.
Ms. Smith, I believe you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, Brian, I just really like to also highlight and thank you and commend you for the community engagement that you've done. I just want to go back to gallery view so I'm not looking at my face. Yeah, and when you first came on board, that was something that you and I talked about the importance of engaging with the community, particularly District B. There's been a long history of that not happening. And you've really done an incredible job. And like Ms. Najewski-Eichner just said, I know I can say your name, Nora. You really made the changes and you really take the time and really listen. And I think that matters. And moving forward, I think that, I just know you'll continue doing that. So thank you for that.
Ms. Young.
Thank you, Mayor. So Brian, I almost feel like a broken record, and I know that I hear what my fellow council members have said, but and I know that Diana can speak for herself, but we do appreciate all the communication that we had, your open door policy, your willingness to meet with the community. As you mentioned, we met with the developers. You, along with Jessica and Steve, were always available to District B. And I'm sure you attended a few more meetings than you originally had anticipated, but that is definitely a good thing. And so we welcome this type of communication moving forward with our projects. It was very helpful and successful, and really a model of the way we should interact with the community when we're talking about projects that impact neighborhoods of this size. So I appreciate all your work. This is just the beginning, and there's so much more to come. So I appreciate you, Brian, and the team. So.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. I think the public input is what makes it better at the end of the day. That's all that I could say.
Any further comments or discussion? I saw Miss Revolute.
I just wanted to say that Councilwoman Young, you're spot on with me. So thank you for just speaking that up, and to Nicole and everybody else, my other council members here. I just want to just add that the engagement just humanizes our community, and particularly in District B. So I just want to thank you for humanizing our ideas, our thoughts, and what we want to be in and live in, and giving regards to the fact that we want to see a community here, not just industry. We want to feel like we're home, and having opportunities to embrace and embellish our community, our home, in our area to be just as equally lovely and a part of the rest of Norwalk the way we all look and see and feel. So I just want to say the additional thank yous for everything that was already said, but just to put the words of humanizing our thoughts and what we want to see, feel, and live in is not only commendable, but needed and appreciated. And that's all I have to say.
Any further?
That's
Seeing no other hands raised, I will call for a vote. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Sure.
Next item on the agenda is
Yes, I'll put my hand up for Shea.
Ms. Shanahan.
Motion to adjourn.
I was about to say, is it a motion? Is it a motion? Because that's me.
How about
You got me. You
we'll
got
do
me. I
something-
was.
3 chances.
We'll do something different. You want to second the motion?
I'll second it, but
Okay.
my volume came off. I'm sorry. I'll give it to you this time. Don't take my job again. But
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you to the council people. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Badoli and Chief Daniels.
Good night.